Welcome back to Brandy Janae Radio. And on today's episode, we are discussing the Real Housewives of Atlanta, season 15. Um, I started preparing for this about 2 weeks ago. I started preparing for my outline. And at the time, I named the episode Wrap It Up. That's because I had planned to record this prior to the season ending. And that is what I wanted to discuss. That was the focal point. I wanted you guys to know that I had had it with the season and I was ready for them to wrap it up because nothing was going on. I mean, everything was dead. Sheree's storyline with Martell. Oh my God, disaster. I don't understand. And here's why it was a disaster for me. I was really rooting for Sheree. When I heard Martell and Sheree were dating, I watched Love and Marriage Huntsville. I've watched them since season one. And I'm a reality TV junkie, guys, in case you didn't know. But back to it. I was really happy for Sheree because I think Martell is fine. Okay. I think he has a nice body and I think he is a gentleman. I know he cheated on his wife. I know he had a baby while he was cheating on his wife and still married. So I didn't say that his character was not flawed. He is a gentleman. He knows how to treat a lady most times. Because that can be relative, right? I'm not speaking about the part that he cheated. I think good people make bad decisions. Good people sometimes continue to make bad decisions. The point with me being happy for Sheree dating Martell really was that with the men that we've seen Sheree even just entertain, whether that be Bob or the other guy, I can't even remember his name, Tyrone. How could I forget it, honey? But yeah, both of those guys were just not they were not good guys. And a woman like Sheree had no business dating either one of those guys. I'm not saying that there's some lady out there that should be dating guys or men like that, but I think that there is a caliber of a woman who can handle those type of men very differently than Sheree. And so with that being said, Sheree really deserved to date someone who would at least know how to show her a good time, open a car door for her, not slam her head in it, okay? And from what I've seen of Martell, I believe that that is him. I believe he is a guy that is just chivalrous. And while that doesn't mean you guys have to go get married and it was going to become some large event, what I thought for her was that, hey, you get some good sex, have some fun, and y'all look good doing it. And so I was excited to see them kind of do that. I thought that they would kind of date a little bit, but turns out that was a business arrangement. At least that's what it looked like. I don't know who they trying to convince that it was something else because I am not convinced, honey. And I'm not even sure if they even had sex. Like, to be honest, I was hoping she had got her some good D, but I don't think so, honey. It just looked like they just was there to be on each other's show a couple times because I think he only showed up twice over here and she only showed up once over in Huntsville. And all three of those encounters were very odd. They did not look like people who had been intimate with each other. They did not look like people who had spoke intimately with each other. Okay. Like they just didn't look like they knew each other at all. If you ask me. And they had the nerve to have a conversation. This is when I checked out of that episode, out of that relationship and the episode for that part, for that much. Is when they sat down and had a discussion about blending families. And I mean, while that's a normal discussion you have with a guy or with a mate who brings in other children, but in the midst of them discussing blending families, it comes up, which this is no secret. Martell does want to get married. He also wants to have more children, even though he has 5, 4 with his ex-wife and the one with his side chick. And so fine, that's okay for you to want more children, right? However, you're talking to somebody who is closer to 60 than they are to childbearing. And don't get me wrong, women are having babies later in age, and I mean, as long as she has the capabilities of carrying and I guess delivering a baby, that's a conversation that you can have, but I don't think it's realistic. As a mom of three myself, and she has three also, and she's about 20 years older than me. Maybe we're going to give her 15. She's about 15 years older than I am. I do not think that's the person that you are discussing going back into motherhood with a newborn. She has all of her children grown and thriving on their own for the most part. She now has just welcomed in a new grandbaby. That is not the woman you should be discussing furthering your family with in that way. And so I thought that that was absurd, and I checked out. Okay, done with that. So we move on to Kenya. You know, we know Kenya's going through this divorce that has been forever in the making. Okay, they might as well file divorce papers the day they signed their marriage license. However, she's not been able to discuss any of it. And then she shows up on season 15 and she is not here to work, honey. And I think she said it on Carlos King's interview, is that she was bored. She did not have anybody that was really, going to challenge her or really give her a run for her money. And I can agree with her on that. I really can, because the season was boring. To call it the worst season of Real Housewives of Atlanta is almost an understatement. That's a season that should have been left on the cutting room floor. They should have come to us and said, you know what? We're not even going to play with y'all brains with what we have here, because nobody showed up to work. And the reason, except Marlo, but the reason why Marlo did show up is because she wants to upbeat. She wants to keep it. And while Kenya and Candy do not think she deserves it, do not think she should be on the same platform with her, Marlo said, well, I'm going to give these people what they want. So, hey, you don't want to have a conversation with me? Then let me force you to have one with me. And so, with all of those little dynamics going on, Candy and Kenya not wanting to have direct conversation with Marlo, you could visibly see that in the first 4 or 5 episodes. It was not until Marlo, started to express how upset she was about Candy not reaching out about her nephew, that it's like she had to force her to directly speak to her. Up until that moment, it was Monyetta that was speaking for Candy to Marlo. So while Monyetta sat on Carlos King's podcast and said that she wasn't a puppet, I mean, can we just call you Bert? Because that is exactly what your role was the entire season. Right down to Candy, there was a scene, Sheree's having a sip and see, and melodramatic Drew pulls up, and I guess she saw Anthony walking in the door, so she calls Candy and say, hey, this is melodramatic. There's a man that just walked in who assaulted me. Are you kidding me, Drew? Like, and the camera spans to Anthony. Like, Drew is so dramatic. However, Candy decides that she wants to walk outside to finish this conversation. And what does she do? Come on, you want to come on with me? Come on, Mom. Come on. And what Mo do? Oh, okay. Because you at a party and a person can't walk outside without you, but let her tell it. It was just she wanted to know what was going on. Girl, bye. Everywhere you was, Candy was there. And if Candy wasn't there, because that is why you were there. You were there to fill in for Candy not being there. Candy missed quite a bit of episodes this season, which is why she's on the chopping block. It's Candy been boring, so it don't have anything to do with what she did and didn't do this season outside of showing the F up. As much money as they pay these girls, hey, business is business. I don't understand how it is. They probably do get it. It's the fans, I think, they usually don't get it. But yeah, you getting paid, you're the highest paid housewife, and you miss half of the season, then go ahead and do what it is you need to do outside of Real Housewives, because clearly you do not have time to collect this overpaid check to do next to nothing. So yeah, I would relieve her of her duties also. Same with Kenya. You don't want to talk about what's going on in your life. You want to avoid talking to Marlo. You want to produce yourself. Then go get your own show, right? You don't need to be on the Real Housewives of Atlanta to do that. Okay? You're next to the highest after Candy, and you delivered 0. And fine, it was because you was bored. Go be bored at home. Who do you think has money, especially now, that's going to be just paying you for nothing? Anybody want to chime in on that? So when it comes to Marlo, Sanya, and Drew, I mean, they're just trying to find their way. And Marlo is just Marlo has been around these girls long enough that she knows, like, what it is they're supposed to be doing to get something happening, to address conversations. But again, it's Marlo, and because the girls decided they weren't going to talk to her, they decided they was going to ice her out. That's my perspective. My perspective from watching this season, that at the very beginning, you can visibly tell Kenya and Candy made a pact. They made a pact to try to get Marlo out, or basically probably to discourage Marlo, because I'm not even going to give them that much power to say they can get somebody fired. I know that that's not true, but what they can do is mess with your money. They can make it where you don't want to show up for scenes. They can make it where you're not getting a scene, and so it won't be included. Most housewives get paid per episode. It's not, oh, you're on the Housewives, here's your check, and then whatever you do, you don't do. No, you get paid per episode. So so after y'all film, and you don't even know how many episodes you're gonna have. You film. I think some of the contracts guarantee episodes. I think I remember Nene kind of going through some of that. But anyhow, for the most part, you don't know how many episodes you are going to get. You have a negotiation for each episode. You do your filming, and then editing happens. And how the way the story goes, that's how the story goes. So again, back to them icing Marlo out. I think that they made a decision that if they wanted Marlo off the show, they would lessen her episodes. That's kind of like a wean off for a lot of housewives too, is when here we go back to Candy, when you start to see them less, that kind of is an exit cue, right? Because again, even though you get paid per episode, that money that they're paying you, they can take in and go pay somebody else, right? And pay them much less and keep some of that in the pocket, and maybe they'll go on a few more trips instead of one per year. I don't know. But anyhow, Drew, melodramatic as ever, turns everything into this extraness that is so draining. We watched her pick with, it's funny that I'm going to use the term pick with Courtney, because I think Courtney running around picking with everybody else. However, we watched them have this debate, and I guess this is what they talked about at this reunion that they filmed, because the season was so boring. I don't know what they could have possibly had to talk about. But from the clips, they had something to talk about, and I guess we're gonna watch at least in 2 parts. Anyway, we watched them go back and forth about Monietta telling Drew that Courtney called her a B. It is on camera, Courtney. I don't know. The way that the camera rolled back, it's not clear who Courtney is referring to. She used the B word, but it is not clear who she's referring to. And what is clear is that she was not using it in some aggressive manner, like you be. You get what I'm saying? Because if that was happening, you wouldn't have to question who a person was talking to. If a person was outgoing, like damn, making sure they was calling you out your name, they usually make sure you know it. And so if they were all in the same room and Drew somehow didn't hear, which Drew is naive, okay, and she don't have all of her marbles. To me, that's my perspective, okay? I'm not saying that is true, because maybe she does. I just don't think she acts like it a lot of the time. And in this case particularly. So she goes and confronts Courtney. And again, she's probably just trying to do her job, trying to make sure they get something to include in this season. But it's so doggone like, do you know the age group of people that is watching this? So this is what I mean. She confronts Courtney about calling her a B. Drew is at least 40. And not that you are okay with anybody calling you a B, not that you just, that you just welcome anybody calling you a B, because maybe not, but this is how I feel it. And I think at 40 years old, you are old enough to just pick your battles a little better than that and a little different. But we all know Drew showing up to any fight. However, Monyetta is the one that had to tell you that Courtney called you a B. When you confront Courtney's saying no, she didn't. Again, it's on camera. However, she just responded to her, no, she didn't. And so now there's this back and forth about if she did and yeah, you did. And, I don't know what it means. And I just thought it was so silly, because if one person can't come to me and tell me that somebody else called me a B, and then I go and feel like I want to go ham, turkey, and bacon on that other person. It's, to me, if a person comes to you with that type of stuff, I would think that you would look at that person like you just started mess, and I wouldn't let that person gas me up. But as I'm saying this, I thought about it, and we're talking about Drew. I think Drew has an automatic winder in her back, and anybody has access to it. She needs to really check that. I used to be kind of like that. Maybe that's a Chi-Town thing. Maybe when you from Chicago, you just be about it and ready to destroy anybody, right? But she does need to check that, because any and everybody can wind her up and send her off. And that's not a good look, Drew. You need to get that under control. So I've already talked about the friends. Now, again, I had this all planned out, what I wanted to say, how we was going to talk, and I was about to tell y'all how much I really wanted them to do a recast. Well, honey, it took me too long, because Love B. Scott went ahead and dropped a blog post last night that put everything in perspective. Real Housewives of Atlanta reboot is in the works. Production is demanding fresh new peaches after a disastrous season. I can't say the writing was not on the wall, from the episodes being cut this season to the reunion only being 2 parts to the reunion really not being much about anything that happened in the season. They definitely are discussing things that we didn't see and that didn't happen, because the season was dreadful, in my Dwight Eubanks voice. How dreadful, okay? Because it was, and that is season 7. I think it's 7, the one with Claudia and Demetria McKinney. That is a season that I can rewatch every other season of Atlanta Housewives. I do not rewatch that season. I skip past it every time. And even though they had some kind of comical parts in that season, it's so draining to watch. It's draining to watch, because there were a lot of things going on that was kind of similar to happening here, except nobody else could create anything else to happen to distract you from the dreadfulness that was going on with Kenya, Candy, and Marlo. That was a toxicity that just ruined the whole bunch. Quite frankly. Excuse me, let me take a drink of water, y'all. So let me go ahead and share with you the post from Love B. Scott's blog site, and then we'll discuss our thoughts, okay? So out with the old and in with the new. The Real Housewives of Atlanta is all but officially getting a complete makeover. Sources exclusively tell lovebscott.com that production made the call to recast the entire show at some point during the taping of the season 15 reunion. Well, I don't know how many days it took them to film the reunion. Again, I can't imagine what took them that long. It couldn't have been no more than 8 hours. But the fact that they would make that call during the taping of the reunion was, I don't know. They probably was going back to re-edit some of the stuff, and they thought, you know what, we really have nothing. Like, it is time to just recast. But I actually was screaming recast from the very first episode. And I'll get into more later. Let's continue. A source close to production tells us that Bravo is beyond thrilled with the reception of the recently rebooted Real Housewives of New York. So they're fully on board with production's decision to recast Real Housewives of Atlanta. The network is also very pleased with the upcoming seasons of Real Housewives of Potomac and Married to Medicine. We'll see. Now, I do watch Real Housewives of New York. I watch all of the Housewives. And so I know why they rebooted Real Housewives of New York. I watched that season, and I also am watching the current season. I like the current season. What I can say about the current season, and actually watching the current season, is what made my mind up that Atlanta needed a recast. Actually, for me, all the Housewives need a recast. But here's why. It's a breath of fresh air. There's a whole new group of girls. Everybody is on the same playing field. Nobody is on a higher hierarchy than the other one. They all are starting at the same season and pretty much at the same pay levels. So, and with that being said, they can all be equally as eager to tell their own stories. Now, there'll be conflict and things in the midst of that, because that's what happens when you put a group of people together and they don't know each other and the personalities clash, right? But it's refreshing. I enjoy it. I wasn't sure about it because, again, I had been watching Real Housewives of New York since the beginning. And I kind of thought, wow, that's a little harsh. But no, I love it. I love it. And at this point, it's time for a recast for everybody. And reason why is that it's a few of these ladies that's been on this television for over a decade. Let's just go with Sheree for one. Sheree has been back and forth, even though she hasn't been a consistent peach holder. She's been back and forth. It's been a span of 15 years that we've been watching Sheree. And she has yet to really be in a different position than she was when we started. So my question to you is, just how long do you watch someone be in the same position? Like, that is not fun for me, and it's really not encouraging. Like, the Housewives were the ideal, the concept was not made to create conflict amongst women and film it. Like, that was not what the premise of. The premise was to show a lifestyle, right? Which is what influencers do. They present a lifestyle, they present an aesthetic, and they want to inspire people by that. So that's what the Housewives were created to do, to inspire other women by their lives, where they shopped, where they went to eat at, you know. And I mean, like I say, the little tidbits were supposed to be that, you know. However, now it's become something way different. And again, how many, like, no, I don't want to watch this lady continue to get a clothing line off the ground that she told us about 15 years ago. See, the reason why Sheree was able to complete whatever she got, Sheen by Sheree, She by Sheree, SHIT by Sheree, whatever we want to call that high price stuff she is hawking over there, there's a reason why she was able to produce something last season. And it's the reason why we have a lot of entrepreneurs popping up, because we all found access to different vendors and to how to get access to these things and create a business, an e-commerce business. Now, you mean to tell me we watched Sheree 10 years ago present a lifestyle that was much different than what we were able to obtain, and yet when she presents us with her fashion line, it is the same vendor that I'm able to go get? In my Randy Jackson voice, it's a no for me, dog. I support everybody. I support a lot of businesses, but I don't support foolery. I don't support trying to get over. I work very hard for my coins. You're not finna get over on me for them. No, I'll keep them in my pocket. But anyhow, that's just my small little rant. But I'm just saying, so that's why I think it has been time for a reboot, and not even entertaining bringing back these old cast members, which luckily, as we're going to go down, they're not, because it's no point in bringing back somebody old either. It is time for fresh blood. It's just time for some more eager little beavers to come and share their story. And also the representation. What represented Atlanta, what represented New York, what represented all of these cities 10 and 15 and 17 years ago has evolved. Diversity has evolved. So the great thing about New York recasting is they've been able to recast this diverse cast that doesn't feel forced. They all represent the city of New York in their own way. And I think that needs to happen for Atlanta. I'm excited for that to happen for Atlanta. Let me read this next part. Casting for fresh new peaches is already underway. We're told production has quietly been reaching out to managers and agents looking for new girls. There's no interest in bringing back any of the old faces either, not Portia Gobadia or Kim Zolciak. Cheers to that, because I do not bring Kim Zolciak back on this show when she gave nothing in the first place. Now that she needs a job, Kim Zolciak gonna have to pull out that nursing license and see what it can do for her. While production is looking for all new peaches, it is possible for one or two peaches to stick around as friends, similar to the revamped Real Housewives of Miami. It all depends on how casting goes. It's possible that RHOA could go on a brief hiatus to give them extra time to get the casting just right. So that is interesting, and this is true. This is true. Atlanta is getting rebooted. And how I can believe it, even though it's still reports and it's still kind of, Bravo hasn't confirmed, and Bravo probably won't confirm until they know a cast. But this is why I'm on board, and I know that it's almost true. They filmed that reunion almost a month ago. They usually start back filming within a month. And the fact that Kenya did that interview with Carlos King, I'm not real sure when they filmed that interview, but the interview itself and what Kenya talked about in that interview and the timing of when it was aired, when Carlos released it, it felt to me like a pink slip had been handed out, or that was her resignation letter. So because generally when they film the reunion, they usually know who's coming back. Like I said, they usually get back to filming about a month. It doesn't take them very long to start back filming. So the fact that we're not hearing rumblings of them filming would say that there is something going on. Now, the peaches that I think could stick around really would be Drew and Sanya, possibly Sheree, if they feel like they just need this one person to bring everybody together. But if you recast everybody, you don't, because everybody again starts on the same playing level. There'll be somebody that they'll know of each other, or maybe have met prior to the start of filming, and then they'll bring the whole group all together. But again, it won't be these formulations of alliances and, oh, Candy, like, because I know for sure Candy and Kenya have done this off camera. You know, they have pacts with each other about what they're going to do and not do on camera. And so again, when you recast and you start fresh, you kind of get rid of all of that little nonsense. After a while, when Housewives get so big, Teresa, Nene, Kenya, Candy, Ramona, who else? Bethany, Jill, let's see. That's all I got right now. Oh, Vicky, Tamra, Leanne Loughlin. Y'all don't remember her because Dallas, honey, they got rid of Dallas so tough. I don't even think you can go find the, I don't think you can go back and get those episodes and rewatch them. But I named all those housewives off because those are the housewives that gained popularity and then started producing themselves. And once you begin to produce yourself, it's almost like coming in and being your own boss or something, or out bossing the person who's your boss. Like, once you begin to do that, what do you need this other person around? Like, if you're going to come in and produce yourself, then you don't need the producers, right? But at this time, if you're going to produce yourself and not produce anything, now you're not doing what it is you're supposed to do, and we're going to need to move around and get some new talent. So I'm in agreement with this. I'm looking forward to it, and I really can't wait. And even for me, even if it becomes a show that's unrecognizable to what I've known it to be for these 15 seasons that I've watched, I'm ready for that. Even my life has evolved to the point where I can make room to start changing up some of these things that I've been doing for so long. I've actually been working on a lot of that for the last 3 years, which I guess that's why I'm so like for it, because it feels good. Change is good, right? Refreshing is good. That's what that is. That's a refresh. And we need that, right? And it's time. This season was the nail in the coffin. And it was saying, it is time, okay? If y'all been considering it, all of these like rinse and recycle housewives that you're doing, it's over. Like, move on. And also you make room for a new audience, because that, like, the audience that watched Real Housewives of Atlanta, that started watching them 15 seasons ago, we've all evolved into something different. We all have different goals now. We all have probably different interests. We probably are different in different stages of our life. And so again, we just need housewives that represent where your viewers are in their life and where you want the viewers to be, like, to pick up the new viewers. So I'm here for it. Let's continue with the rest of the story. Okay, as previously reported, Real Housewives of Atlanta has been notoriously difficult to cast, which is the only reason why a few current housewives have gotten peaches in the first place. Now, Love B. Scott is a friend of Kenya's. A lot of times, Love B. Scott will write a blog or post, and I am going to say, it's my opinion, that they post to Kenya's benefit. So that's where that's coming from. Kenya has already made it quite clear in her interview with Carlos King that she feels like they are showing Marlo favoritism by re-editing the episodes and giving her more screen time, which that's more money in her pocket. That's pretty much what Kenya boils down to, because the housewives get paid by episode. So what Kenya is saying is they cut her check because they cut her episodes and they gave Marlo the episodes. Here's what I got to say to Kenya. That's what you get for thinking you can slick a can of oil, because you had no business deciding that you were going to be able to minimize Marlo's money. You see how God worked? You see how God worked? What Nene say? You can't win when you play dirty, honey. You never win when you play dirty. And that's how that happens. See, Kenya really forgets her seeds. That's what she forgets the seeds that she plants. Because a lot of times what she ends up running into is her harvest. And really that's what we're coming in. You kind of set all of this up. You tricked Marlo on season 12 into basically siding with you about the um, about Bolo sleeping with Portia or Portia sleeping with Bolo. And you made her think that you guys were going to be friends. And Portia and her fell out, rightfully so, because she did turn on Portia, in my opinion. And I knew it then. I said, "Whew, you turned for the wrong reason, honey." And that girl gonna show her other side. But what's funny to me, what did Nene say? You give me your ASS to kiss once. I'm not gonna stick around for you to bend it over again. Okay? Like, no, we don't have to do that. But anyhow, so that for Marlo, you saw that already, which is why you had no business siding with her in that situation in the first place. However, she did. They came back that next season. Like I said, as soon as Marlo did something to upset Kenya took that and just cut her off. Done. We're not speaking. Don't address me. She yelling at her, treating her with the utmost disrespect. Even though Marlo returns, like I'm not taking up for Marlo. Marlo is no, innocent baby. Okay, Marlo gives as good as she gets. However, it is mean to see Kenya do those things to Marlo, at least to me, because I have a heart that knows that Marlo desperately wants to be accepted by Kenya. Kenya knows that, which is why she treats her like that and is really mean and ugly, like, and vile, like, as a person, for you to be that type of person that knows that somebody is looking and wants your approval and your friendship and you use them. That's just nasty. And I wonder how people act like that, walk around and wonder why there are these unfavorable things coming your way. Never really realizing some of that nastiness that you spew out, because it's not purposely. Like, she doesn't purposely know that that is a very nasty trait, to take advantage of somebody like that. And I think that women, when they do it to other women, I think they don't recognize that, because you only focused on when men take advantage of women, right? But women take advantage of other women in their friendships. But that's another story for another time, y'all. Let's get back to this story. Kenya Moore has been very vocal about production allegedly cutting her storyline and editing her salon event out of the final episodes, but our sources say that the reason Kenya's event wasn't shown is because it was dry and nothing happened, even with nearly the entire cast in attendance. Completely false. I wanted it seen because this is an excerpt from Kenya's Twitter. Completely false. I wanted it seen because it's marketing and the show follows my life. Now, conveniently, the show follows your life when you want to show your salon, but the show shouldn't follow your life and ask you any questions about this divorce you going through from this man we barely got to see, who you claimed you was so in love with, and when we get to see him on TV, he treats you like a complete stranger. You don't want to talk to us about that? See, that's them chickens coming home to roost, Kenya. Like, you don't get to decide what you bring to them. They can decide to take it or leave it. And I'm thinking they left it, Kenya. They left it. It's unfortunate, but that's the way the cookie crumble. And it's funny to me how a lot of people will have so much to say about Nene and however way her stint went. And here's the thing. A lot of stuff Nene brought on herself too. When, again, I'm going to repeat what I said. As a housewife, when you get too big for your own head and you start producing yourself, it's time for you to exit the show. I could be a favorite. You could be a favorite housewife of mine or not. That's going to be my opinion about it. I understand what it is you're supposed to be there to do. And if you're not going to want to do it, then you got to go do what you're trying to do somewhere else. Okay. So, okay, this is the last of Kenya's quote or Kenya's response. So my spa opening has a beginning, middle, and end. The end, opening and completion, was intentionally deleted while others were focused on that fell out the sky. So this is referring to Marlo. Marlo had a couple of scenes show up this season where she had some foster care events. And I do feel like they did feel like fluffers or kind of like thrown together, like they hurry up and figured out how to put this together. But again, you know, people conveniently use what they can to the public without disclosing those things they know in private. I'm able to have some of the perspective I have because I kind of understand the way that the producing of Housewives work. Not because I've ever done it before. It's just that I've been watching these girls for a long time. And you kind of figure out a lot of things. And some secrets do get shared. Carlos King, thank you for your podcast because you actually confirmed a lot of stuff that I already thought I knew, but you confirmed that that was right. And so back to Kenya, like the thing about Kenya is that this is not your show. Here you are producing yourself. You're basically telling us that, hey, I filmed my salon and it had this, that, and we did this and that, and you're upset because production left it on the floor. Yet I'm sure production probably asked you about Mark, or prior to, you probably came and said, now look, I'm not going to be able to talk about Mark because we're going through, you know, this, that, and the other. And so the thing is, they don't want it. It like, I don't know what's wrong with the housewives finishing a storyline. Like, why do you think we want to watch you barely, like I say, we still don't have a full story with this Mark character. We don't have a full story about how y'all really met, how y'all really ended up being married. Because we watched you with Walter, girl. You must have asked that man to marry him or to marry you in the middle of an orgasm. Okay. And because y'all were already on the island, you went ahead and hired a priest before y'all had to get back on the plane and, you know, get back to America. We watched you with Walter. If Walter had said that he was ready to get married in Anguilla, you would have been married then. I don't know who Kenya thinks she's fooling, but Kenya's smart. So she probably thinks she's fooling a lot of people. But I ain't that smart. I ain't that far from being smart, okay? So I got your card, Kenya. And all I'm saying is you're smart enough to understand that they're just passing on what you have to give. And I think she is smart enough to understand that, which is why she did the interview with Carlos King and why she shared a lot of the stuff that she did share during that interview. Because again, that sounded like a resignation type of interview. That sounded like an interview you did not plan on getting a contract from Bravo. Whether they told you not to look for one or you already know you're not accepting one. The point being, you're not getting a contract from Bravo. That's not happening. And now we have this story to confirm it. So, as we previously reported, Kenya's RHOA salary is quite hefty, and Kandi Burruss is the highest paid housewife across all franchises. The network could get an entirely new RHOA cast for less than what they pay either of Kandi or Kenya. Funny thing about, I mentioned that, but the funny thing about them too, they are the highest paid, and with much comes a lot of responsibility, right? When you're given a lot, you have a lot of responsibility. For Kandi is boring, but she's been able to last all of these seasons. It's quite possible that had she not let Kenya talk her into turning against everybody on the show, she could have kept some interesting enough people around to where she could still have her job. at this point. However, they're paying you too much for you to miss half the season. I think that's just the bottom line. So if you're getting the highest paid housewife across all of the franchises, you're getting paid that, and yet you have to miss a lot of the filming, a lot of the events that's being filmed because you do have other obligations, right, to other things that you're doing. I think that they're going to give you your space to go ahead and continue to grow your empire. Todd Tucker Productions just released The Pass on Peacock along with Candy Coated Productions. I think that's what, yeah, Candy Coated Productions. And so I think Bravo is allowing, or Truly Original, whoever it is that's doing the hiring and firing, I think they're going to allow you to get the time that you need so that you can focus on your EGOT. And Kenya, I think that they're going to give you the time and space that you need so that you can focus on solidifying this divorce from Mark. They don't want to be the ones in the middle creating any more conflict for you and Mark, especially because it is not being beneficial to your case or to the viewers. And so with that being said, thank you for your services. And I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with this decision. To put it into perspective, both ladies are making around $100,000 per episode. The entire cast of RHOA Reboot are making around that for the whole season. That's just one more reason as to why production and the network are down for rebooting the show. With rumblings of a new RHOA making the rounds, we wouldn't be surprised to see more of the ladies airing out their grievances on their way out the door. And there you have it, exclusively from Love B. Scott. Real Housewives of Atlanta is in the works for an official reboot. If you're not already, make sure you're following me on this podcast and any of my other social media platforms. I appreciate the time you've taken to listen to me today. And until next time, float like a butterfly and sting like a bee.